these people about this summit. What did they tell you?
You know, what's really interesting is that many people on the street who we approached didn't even know that President Trump was coming here, and others sort of brushed it off as no big deal because, to your point, there is a different understanding of the relationship between China and the U.S. now compared to even just a decade ago because of all the advancements in different areas. And so when we were talking to people, there were certainly plenty who spoke about the importance of this summit to try to maintain that stability and prevent any escalation of competition turning into confrontation. But again, there was a lot of ignorance about the President of the United States coming here. And so the eyes of the world, though, however, will certainly be on this very critical relationship.
And our eyes are on that plane door as we await President Trump coming down. We're going to bring in CBS News national security contributor Samantha Vinograd. Sam, thank you so much for joining us. So you helped plan the summit between President Obama and President Xi in 2013. What do you think is President Trump's mindset, his strategy going into this summit?
Well, I can't speak to Trump's mindset other than wanting to project an image of stability with the People's Republic of China. But what I can tell you is this, Adriana, we are now in the performance phase of the process. There are months of planning that go into these kinds of summits to include trying to prioritize exactly what topics to put on the agenda. There's such a long list. At the same time, historically, both countries would have conducted significant intelligence work to try to identify what the other side really wanted, what the other side's strategy was, and what their non-negotiables were as well. Historically, working-level meetings would have preceded this summit to try to ensure that the president himself is not the deal maker, but rather the deal closer. We have seen Secretary Bessent, for example, engage in those kinds of meetings. So at this time, what we can anticipate is that President Trump signals globally that he and President Xi have a stable relationship. He is certainly focused on ensuring that the business delegation that is accompanying him does get something out of this summit. And then more broadly, of course, that he has some accomplishments on trade, particularly when it comes to U.S. agricultural exports. So a lot to do, but certainly months of work leading up to this moment.
So you just laid out what President Trump is hoping to get out of this. What will President Xi want to get out of this? And how does Iran play into the calculation?
Certainly, President Xi is focused on a stable economic relationship with the United States as well. He has been quite focused on ensuring that the United States relaxes some of the U.S.'s export controls on key technologies to China, including certain chips, as well as components for semiconductors. He is also very focused on getting the U.S. administration to have some sort of public pivot on U.S. policy toward Taiwan, and perhaps signaling an openness to reunification between mainland China and Taiwan. So those are likely topping President Xi's agenda with President Trump, Adriana.
And Sam, what levers do both sides have to try to get the other to their goal?
President Xi is certainly aware of the economic crisis that is impacting this country. Certainly moments before President Trump took off for China yesterday, he was asked about the economic impact of the war in Iran on the United States, which he brushed off. The People's Republic of China was certainly paying attention to those comments, to inflation numbers and more. And so China will try to exert its economic leverage over the United States, its chokehold on critical minerals and rare earths that are so fundamental to so many parts of Americans' lives. And of course, China will try to position itself as a mediator vis-a-vis Iran because of its close economic relationship, as well as its export of certain technologies to the Iranian regime that are critical to the Iranian military complex.
Sam, are these technologies that are being used militarily by Iran against the U.S.?
China has been accused of exporting what are called dual-use technologies to the Iranian regime and, importantly, Adriana, to Russia for its war in Ukraine. Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent accused China of being the largest state sponsor of terrorism because of its support for the Iranian regime. And so we should expect there to be deep consternation within the U.S. national security complex about China's export of these dual-use technologies, drone parts, and more to not just the Iranian regime, but to the Russian government as well.
And let's bring Weijia Jiang back in from Beijing. Weijia, obviously there are economic pressures right now on the U.S. given the price of oil, but China has also been struggling economically. How will that play into this? And what will it take, if anything, for China to use its power that it has, its influence over Iran, being the largest purchaser of Iranian oil, to try to end this war?
Right. Adriana, I think both of these leaders understand that they need each other when it comes to their economies. They are so intertwined that it is in the best interest for both Presidents Xi and Trump to maintain this stability and to open up the doors for each other rather than closing them. But of course, it is a lot more complicated to do that. However, if it's any indication what President Trump is eyeing, just look at the entourage that he is bringing with him here to Beijing. We know that there are several CEOs from America expected to join him. In fact, aboard Air Force One, Elon Musk flew with him, along with the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang. Tim Cook of Apple is also expected to be here. It's quite a long list because the president wants to signal just how important it is for this China-U.S. relationship to bloom even more as it relates to American businesses. And so that is clearly what the president is eyeing. Xi Jinping is well aware of that. And we do expect some big deals to be announced by the end of this visit. More purchasing of American soybeans, perhaps Boeing jets, which is a huge priority for the president, and American beef. And you're right that the backdrop of all of this is so critical because China does hold a card here. They are the biggest purchaser of Iranian oil, which is helping Tehran stay economically afloat. But to Sam's point earlier, the president explicitly said before coming here that he doesn't think he needs any help when it comes to mediating an off-ramp with Iran. And so that conversation will be quite interesting, Adriana, if the president doesn't explicitly ask Xi to reduce the purchasing of oil.
Important context there from our Weijia Jiang on the ground in Beijing as we await the president for him to descend the steps there at the airport. Just to recap, President Trump has just landed in Beijing for a high-stakes summit with China and Chinese President Xi Jinping. Our coverage continues on CBS Mornings, your local news, and on our 24-hour streaming channel, CBS News 24/7. Tonight, Tony DeCopel will anchor the CBS Evening News from Taiwan. Many of you will return now to CBS Mornings. This has been a CBS News Special Report. I'm Adriana Diaz in New York.
And welcome to CBS News New York. You've been watching a special report. I'm Mary Calvi, and let's get to the other top stories. No deal yet to prevent a strike for the LIRR service could be impacted in just days. The concerns from commuters. Plus, World Cup tickets aren't cheap, but getting to the game just got a bit more affordable. Price cuts announced overnight for trains and buses to MetLife Stadium. And the city budget is done, at least according to the mayor. But how exactly did he close that $5 billion budget gap? An expert from the Citizens Budget Commission joins us live to break it down. But first, let's get you over to meteorologist Tony Sadiqa. We have some rain that we're dealing with at this hour.
Yeah, Mary, mainly north of New York City, but just some nuisance showers to get your day started. Certainly not the bright skies that we had yesterday, but it's a warmer day, so we'll take the trade-off. So we are tracking some wet weather, not just right now, but really unsettled the next couple of days. So it's kind of a cloudier look. I mean, what a difference a day makes, right? Some downpours in the mix and then a warm weekend. Right now, when you look at the radar, you can tell the balance of the activities north of the city. And we kind of called this, right, with the warm front lifting. It'd be mainly across the Hudson Valley. Most of this is light, maybe a minor inconvenience, but it's not all that heavy. It can get heavier the later we go tonight and early tomorrow. So here's how things are looking right now. Sure, we've got the showers here, but all of this is an extension of a system that stretches back to the west. So western New York, you've got some heavier rain. And then there's a cold front that extends back to the west. That is now moving even slower than it was before. So it's going to take its sweet time to get here. And by the time it gets here, it's going to be well after dark. So I actually think once this little batch of wet weather moves in, we're going to be able to enjoy a mainly dry rest of the day before showers start to move in, again, west to east After about 8 o'clock, our western suburbs probably moving into the city closer to 11 midnight. Raining a good bit overnight, but then there's some lingering wet weather into the first part of tomorrow before those showers start to taper. Meanwhile, highs today are actually warmer. That's despite the clouds. We'll thank a west wind for that, or southwest wind for that, and so that could push numbers even warmer than they were yesterday. Hudson Valley, mid-60s, 60s on the island. But it doesn't come without a gusty breeze. So this is kind of what you get when you have two pressure systems moving nearby, that low that's bringing in the rain. Meanwhile, that high is still offshore. So winds do get a little gusty, and we'll have to contend with that. But temperatures are warmer today, and then they cool down tomorrow as the winds shift. 60s Thursday, Friday. Not bad, but it'll cooler than average. And then after that, we're moving on up. It's all about the warmth from there. Feeling like summer. Saturday in the 70s, 80s on Sunday. That's the warmer half of the weekend. And then next week, mainly dry to start. Temperatures spiking as warm as 85, likely 90s in parts of New Jersey. All right, let's get you over to Guy Stanier helping you navigate some slowdowns out there and first alert traffic. And how are we looking at this hour?
Well, Tony, unfortunately, we have some